So we had an event in the House of Lords yesterday because it's 2 years since the International Criminal Court issued its advisory opinion saying that Israel's occupation of Palestine was illegal and that all countries in the UN needed to act to end that occupation and needed to stop supporting it. So we brought together MPs, members of the House of Lords, members of civil society, to say basically, what should the British government be doing more? They've done some things. They recognise the state of Palestine. They've sanctioned some ministers. But under the terms of the advisory opinion, they should be doing much more. And we laid out 5 pledges for Palestine that we're asking Andy Burnham, as he becomes Prime Minister, to reset UK policy and to implement. Will pressure on the PM make him act? And what should that action be? So the first part, will the pressure work? There is a lot of pressure in Parliament. 58% of Labour Party members are critical of the government's policy. Most Labour MPs now are critical of the government's policy. There's been a shift, and that shift is following public opinion, which has already shifted. So there's a new electoral reality which MPs will respond to. So yes, I think there is going to be some change in policy. The question is there going to be a reset in that policy? And our 5 pledges, which are to end all trade in goods and services. Ireland yesterday ended Irish trade with settlements, but not financial services. We want the UK to do both. We want to enforce international law for the UK to fully support the ICC and the ICJ. We want to ensure all humanitarian aid gets into Gaza. In this fake ceasefire, where over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed, people are continuing also to die of starvation. The aid has got to get through. We want the government to support the opening of Gaza to full scrutiny of politicians and journalists, and end the targeting of journalists by the ADF. And finally, it's the bigger piece, the regional piece. Israel has invaded Lebanon, Syria, it's attacked Iran. There needs to be a UK-led effort with allies to stop this attempt of Israel achieving regional hegemony. Those are 5 things the UK government can do, which would bring us in line with the ICJ advisory opinion. Why isn't the UK government, and it's a Labour government, which is in its manifesto and its history and ethos committed to international law, why is it failing to fulfill its obligations under international law? And I think there are a number of different answers to that. Firstly, I think Keir Starmer and his Chief of Staff, McSweeney, were very, very strong supporters of the Israeli alliance. And they supported the idea that somehow Israel was a Western outpost in the Middle East, and it was in our security and national interest for peace to support Israel. Now, there are very few people left in the world who believe that Israel is a force for peace in the Middle East, or that Israel is a good ally of the UK. Over 50% of the UK population in a poll published on Monday by Cabu say that they believe Israel has committed genocide in Gaza. So while that leadership of the government was in place, there were some changes. Britain did recognise Palestine, but it was always the absolute minimum that could be done in order to tick a box and calm down the opposition within the party. First, that strategic reason, I think, is now in complete tatters. The second reason, I think, is that there has been a reluctance to deal with this problem because of the issue that's raised all the time of anti-Semitism and the equating of being a critic of the government of Israel with being anti-Semitic. And we have to bury this idea. Anti-Semitism is real, it's evil, it needs to be opposed, as all racial prejudice needs to be opposed, including Islamophobic action and violence, which we also see across the UK, although it's massively underreported, although not on your network. But there has been a reluctance to engage because of a fear of being called anti-Semitic. I think that has fallen away as well. So I think the combination is that Israel is no longer seen as a reliable strategic ally, and that people are increasingly seeing that criticizing Israel as not being anti-Semitic means that there is now an opportunity for profound change. There is a hope that Andy Burnham will act, but this is very low down his list of priorities. He's a domestic-focused politician. He's got to deliver on the economy. He's got to deliver on the cost of living. He's got to deliver on devolution. He's got to communicate the government's message much more strongly. But what we see with British prime ministers is they quickly become interested in foreign affairs. And his background is mixed. He was a member of Labour Friends for Israel and has made noises about being pro-Israeli, but he also visited Palestine with Cabu, and as mayor of Manchester, he supported a ceasefire in Gaza. Also, I think there's a change of guard at the top of government, a change of mood, and I think many more voices from the backbenches will be heard by this government. And he is not blind to public opinion, right? So he understands that lots of his MPs are under threat in communities where there is a strong Muslim presence, in communities where there's a young people, a progressive presence. 18 to 24-year-olds overwhelmingly support Palestine. And they vote on that. They vote Green or they vote Independent. So his MPs will also be saying, we've got to change in order to save our seats. So there are strong reasons, but the UK always wants to stay in line with America. And while America, although there are definite divisions between Trump and Netanyahu now, nevertheless, since the ceasefire ended and America has started attacking Iran again, Israeli and American interests seem to be aligned again. And that's worrying. So there was a moment there where I think actually Burnham had an opportunity also because America was breaking with Israel. So that so-called special relationship will draw him back and hold him back a little bit. That's my major worry. Every other force and every other intellectual, legal and emotional argument. We saw the report from the UN on the 20,000 children who've been killed in Gaza. Every argument is in favor of a reset of policy, except potentially the US special relationship. So the most urgent government action is on the E1 development. This is a development that tenders will be issued later in July, which will split East Jerusalem from the rest of the state of Palestine. We have got to do everything to ensure that stops by putting pressure on the Israeli government, and we've got to make sure that no UK financial institutions are involved in providing any kind of credit or funding for any of the Israeli companies that will tender for it. That's number one. Then we have to move, as islanders move, to ban all trade with the settlements. And then we have to ban all financial services and the provision, for example, of mortgages from Israeli and other banks based in the UK to purchase property. And we saw a couple of weeks ago this property sale going on in London. You could buy a holiday home in an illegal Israeli settlement. All of that has got to be banned. And it's very straightforward. We did it in Crimea when there was the full-scale Russian invasion. We've done it against Russia. The legislation is in place. It's called SAMLA. There needs to be no new primary legislation. There simply needs to be the same application of the UK values of international law as we applied to Russia now should be applied to the State of Israel. And that means full banning of goods and services and other measures, other sanctions on the State of Israel until the illegal occupation of the State of Palestine by the State of Israel is ended.